Welcome back to the casting desk. Me and Taka are standing by now. If you just tuned in, you've only missed 2 games so far because I think I aged 4 years since the last game started.
Hey, they just know it's 3 times Worshippers Weekend. That's all that's going on there.
Yeah, but
now.
they don't get it. They're in customs.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's the thought that counts.
Feels bad. Well, now we get to see SPL Relegations versus SPL Relegations. It's Team AI versus Team Flashpoint. Both of them have lost a game so far. Loser here is probably having an early bath and getting ready for the Challenger Cup next split.
Oh, it's definitely going to be interesting considering that when you've already taken a loss for the day and it's just the first set that you're playing off against, and that's when you're really trying to make your debut and prove to people we belong here. That kind of just ends up messing with the team mentality. I think a little bit more in NA as opposed to the EU side of things.
So let's look at the schedule for you guys at home as well. Obviously, we just said Flashpoint versus AI is the next game. After that, we'll be seeing Kapow, also known as Mighty Storm, up against the Gatekeepers, both 1 apiece so far. And then following that, AI versus Gatekeepers, and then the last match later on today. Don't worry about that, but there'll be potential of 6 games today. And basically, back to this one, AI versus Flashpoint. So 2 relegation teams. Realistically, AI was kind of formed together at the end of AI's run, which were formerly known as Eager. The only real members really staying on this team since the old days, really, I guess, is Chapo.
I don't know if I'd really consider Chapo as like one of the original members. The roster has pretty much changed entirely, considering like the acquisition of Team Money, Whalrus, and Incon, all to their respective roles of solo, mid, and support. Really, just it's about this team trying to find their synergy and carry it through for the relegations to find their way back into the SPL.
Well, let's get into picks and bans and see how this one starts up, because that last game, just so you guys at home know, is the 3rd longest in PC history of Smite in terms of length. The longest, rest in peace Allied, he's the motherfucker that still got that one. I swore, I didn't mean to, but it was like, well, that's coming out because it's true. Like, that poor guy did that game, and I don't think he's ever going to lose that title unless this meta keeps going the way it's going.
And I feel as though we've got to let him keep that W.
I think he needs to as well. Humbats, Odin, Morrigan, and Skadi banned out. So what's available on the table? Hell is up, but we've not seen any so far.
We haven't seen any Hells, respectively, because there is still a little bit of counterplay that can be involved against her. And it's actually going to be a Terra as the first pick selection for Flashpoint. Kind of the same mentality where you want a little bit of sustain, but Terra just provides so much in team fight scenarios.
Tough in response from AI, so we will more than likely see Team Money play something different in the mid lane here. We saw the Raw last game. Raw's along the same sort of lines as Thoth. Only difference is he's going to start hitting these ultimates if he's going to make an impact.
He really needs to start landing his abilities, and it's going to be pretty devastating for his team, again, if he's not able to connect with those long-term shots, because that's what Raw or even a Thoth is all about. It's all about getting off that poke potential, and when you play those kind of guys, you're kind of just telling your team, we can trust the commit.
Well, no Ravana last game. This time we will see it picked up early on, and the Raw for Flashpoint too. So first 3 picks down. They still need the Hunter and more than likely the Jungler for them. AI, though, only really the solo and mid locked in, so this space is not too bad for anything, realistically. But going to go back to the Athena again. I think Incon played amazingly last game. I don't think he really put a foot wrong.
I think that Incon was doing a phenomenal job on that Athena. This is such a strong look for this team as well, because he had so much setup and peel that there was so much awareness for Incon. Because typically with Athena players, that's one big thing that kind of gets overlooked, is just how often they're utilizing that onto their teammates for a defensive position, not just the offensive side. Well,
Cataban's coming through, Circuit and Naja by Flashpoint, and AI going to take away Hoyi and Rama, so a lot of Hunter focus from AI here. A little bit worried about sops from Flashpoint.
It's a little bit of a shot to his god pool, but there are still some strong picks available. There's Ullr, for example, who recently got a buff to his ultimate, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him maybe opt for that selection. They are going to pick up the Ratatoskr on the side of FP. That's a fun one, considering it's got enough of a global presence alongside of the Terra to maybe have an impact.
But we're not seeing much Ratatoskr for a while. Everyone's been picking Thor over Ratatoskr because they both play very similarly, and that's down to the nerfs that Ratatoskr got with the ultimate. The radius really coming down, kind of impacting his ability in the team fights.
He still has a lot of setup poke, though, and I think alongside of a Ravana and the Raw, it's just going to be enough to provide a ton of team fight potential.
Yeah, a lot of setup potential from Flashpoint. AI going to round out with Thor for Chapo in the jungle, more than likely. So that roster, a little bit different than the last game for AI. Now, they are coming off the back of that 60-minute game, too, so that's a bit rough for them to go straight into the next game. And morale mustn't be great there in the squad. I mean, they were down for a long period of that game, arguably a good 40 minutes. Had ways back into it, but just couldn't get back in all the way and made mistakes.
This is where team morale can really start to shine a light on the overall gameplay for a person, just because when you're coming off the back of that loss, because it's the same story for Flashpoint. They lost a very plus 50-minute game as well, but theirs was prior to AI's. They've had a little bit of time to kind of regroup and refocus, but for AI, they're just jumping straight into it, and that's where it can be kind of fun to see how these players will react to that.
Well, we're underway, and Flashpoint starting to barrel down mid early on. Just a quick ward placed down there by Mexiety by the looks of it on the right-hand side, just to make sure they keep an eye out for a speed buff invade. ManRay will be playing the Raw in the mid lane. Starting off with the Book of Thoth rush. Same can be said for Team Money. So, Battle of the Two Egyptian Gods. Both were very similar playstyles to an extent. One's more sustained, one's more ranged poke, I guess, is the best way of putting it.
Who's the better chicken, pretty much?
It's a good way of putting it.
It's going to be the
Who's
story
getting chicken
here.
dinner, I guess, is the real question. Will it be Flashpoint or AI? Obviously, the loser of this is pretty much out of the SPL, unless everybody loses to the same team and then they all trade out evenly. Then we get a tiebreaker scenario. But as it stands, Flashpoint and AI both on the cusp of elimination here with how this is looking. And this is a very, very telling and important game for them both.
And neither side really wants to be the side that gets knocked out first. That's definitely for sure.
Well, right-hand side, you can see that Chapo is starting over here with Whalrus at the beginning of the game. Mexiety's going to start mid alongside ManRay, so pressure for jungler in mid versus pressure for jungler in the solo lane. They may both try and collapse into the speed buff side of the jungle. Obviously, they will from the solo lane, but will Flashpoint in mid do the same? It looks like we're just going to see everybody farm their own buffs for the time being.
It kind of makes sense as well. I would probably favor AI right now for the jungle clear, just because you have the Thor and the Sun Wukong. You can never count out a Ravana. However, Ravana is still a ton of early game pressure. So combining that with a Ratatoskr, who also has pretty decent clear, pretty safe for these teams to just clear out their own buffs.
And you can see the clear they've managed to get for themselves there. Mexiety and XenoHawks will be back to the lane a little bit quicker than Whalrus and Chapo, who were paired up. So this is a nice advantage for Flashpoint in that lane. And take into account Team Money is getting free farm on his own in the mid lane for the time being, so his level should start to escalate eventually.
Ton of poke already, though, onto Whalrus. Mexiety trading out a little bit of his own HP, though, to that spin the wind from Chapo, but gotta keep an eye out from that rat dash in with the stun poke off of his third ability.
Well, we've not checked into the duo lane just yet, but it's pretty much a farm off between the two. It's Ullr and Athena up against Terra and Cernunnos. In the early game, it's definitely going to be Ullr, Athena in the first couple levels, but then once Terra gets online, it's definitely going to swing back round.
It depends, though, because XenoTronics just has so much safe clear with Ullr. Ullr is probably one of the best hunters for early game bullying. However, you have to keep in mind that Ullr, although he might be strong for the first 5 levels, he doesn't get an extra little oomph after he hits the 5th level. He's kind of just potentially putting stacks into his 4th ability. And most people generally like to just level the 1-3 straight away.
If anything, Ullr just seems like consistent damage throughout the whole game. He doesn't really have... I think his early game is pretty good for wave clear, I guess, because obviously 2 abilities. But after that, he kind of is just consistent throughout the whole game. He doesn't really like power spike like a Rama would in the late game potentially, or even Anher goes into that mid game really strong. Ullr's just consistent.
Or a power spike like what a Kern can obtain if the game is climbing up there, because once you start having to approach more of the melee range selection when these team fights get a little bit more hectic, that's where sops might be able to find the advantage over XenoTronics, because sops will also have that AoE ultimate. Even though it doesn't do a ton of damage, it still interrupts and can kind of disturb a team fight.
Well, very slow going between the two, and I kind of expected that, both coming in off the back of a loss and AI off the back of that 60-minute game. But Mexiety's going to be the first to the sky with his ultimate, looking at Whalrus, and will find the knock up into the stun, and the spin is good, but Oxform to the rescue will keep Whalrus alive for the time being. Good early pressure, however, giving some help to XenonHawks here. Bad news is they can't really get anything else out of this because the whole jungle is down.
I like the discipline from XenonHawk as well to not opt to tower dive Whalrus underneath his T1 tower. Knowing that he had his ultimate available and Whalrus is still level 4, that creep wave was pushing in. So if Whalrus were to hit level 5 before he's able to clean that up, could have probably turned the table on him.
Well, mid lane pressure there, as you can see at the moment. Mexiety's gone back to ManRay's gone back to base, I should say, to pick up that Book of Thoth nice and quick. Meanwhile, Team Money has had to invest in the sands of time. Now, we've seen this out of some mid laners when they've not been able to stack up that Book of Thoth gold in time. They will head back and get the Sands of Time just to keep them sustained and in the lane longer. But this is a power spike for Flashpoint because ManRay's already got his finished.
It's interesting that Team Money opted for the Sands of Time because he is actually level 6. So he's gathered a little bit more XP. And it's just that he isn't keeping, or he's right on par with ManRay. ManRay, I think, just wanted to full commit to the Book of Thoth.
Could be based off the fact that we saw ManRay start off with the Ratatoskr in mid, which means he didn't have to use as much mana to clear the creeps, and sustain is a big issue for the mages at the beginning of the game. That's one of the reasons Team Money may have ended up back in base and buying that Sands of Time. You can see right now, Team Money, he's been back, as we mentioned. He's already way below half mana bar in terms of how much he's got available to continue spamming.
One of the downsides to that early game clear for the laning is just trying to focus on making sure that your lane is pushed enough or equally to your opposition. Incon helping him out, though, in the mid lane. Pretty important, so they won't have to worry as much about falling behind there. But with these Oracles spawning and the 4-man grouping coming out from Flashpoint, it's actually just going to be the Gold Fury straight away. ManRay has an ultimate to secure this perfectly.
And nobody is going to turn up in time because there's 3 members in the mid lane all trying to farm a wave and not even realizing it's gone. The Gold Fury sound echoes around the map, and now AI realize the mistake they made. They got the last oracles too, Taco. They knew when those oracles were spawning. They saw everybody missing and instead didn't contest.
Nobody really anticipates a Gold Fury happening that early on. Luckily for AI, it was an incredibly early Gold Fury.
So it's not worth too much.
Not worth too much, but it's still just the concept behind it. You can't get caught snoozing like that.
Especially when you do have a Thor, an Athena, and on top of that a Thoth, who can all technically disrupt or even not steal away in most opportunities that Gold Fury attempt. But in the end, Flashpoint off to a good start, and Whalrus getting confident on this right-hand side here. Bad news is, with Gold Fury down, it does allow the jungler Mexiety to come over here and apply some pressure, knowing he's not going to lose anything in the left for the time being, and Whalrus is forced to ult defensively.
Whalrus has boots, and he still has his shell available. Going up into his ultimate was probably the safer play. You don't really want to expend that relic when you know that the cooldown for your ult's going to be a little bit shorter, but Mexiety might look to potentially ult over to this solo lane now on a later rotation since Whalrus doesn't have that ultimate.
It's a good point. Just keep an eye on Whalrus and Mexiety then to see if that does happen. Chapo was just hanging around between duo and mid, looking for a potential ult opportunity. Bad news is there's ward coverage around the Gold Fury pit for Flashpoint, which made it very tricky. And then mid lane, you've also seen ManRay playing very safe under his tower, just going for the farm when the wave comes in, not even trying to walk up to the wave, which makes it very tricky for Chapo to put pressure on with a Thor.
And it seems as though AI maybe want to look for an engagement onto Flashpoint's red buff. Chapo hanging around those left mid harpies. And this is perfect positioning for a Thor ultimate to potentially just drop ship on.
Money dashes in, looks for the steal over the wall, gets the stun off Mexiety as well as the taunt from Incon, but there's the Thor ult coming through, and Team Money will snipe out Shadowq because of that one. Fight continuing though as a great wombo comes through, the rat from the sky and the snipes from ManRay, and Mexiety gets himself a kill as well. Nice pickups from Flashpoint on the turnaround of the red buff being, by the looks of it, stolen away. No, to lie, it wasn't stolen. It was still secured by Flashpoint, so a good win for them.
That's certainly a W for Flashpoint because they were able to find the 2-for-1. And when you're able to secure your buff on top of that, XenoTronics dying there is awful for him because it provides a current time to come back. But it's going to be Incon actually in a lot of trouble trying to help defend this speed buff. But Whalrus is really looking to go in on the Mexiety.
The good news is, though, is that Flashpoint have to fall back now, and AI are in a better position to defend their own speed. So they won't lose their speed as well. I did like Flashpoint's idea, though, Taco. Immediately win that engagement, get the 2-for-1, and then try and invade and get even more off the result.
I'm just surprised that AI stacked up as much as they did against a raw Ratatoskr comp, and that's really the danger behind it, is that little bit of a knockup from Mexiety's ult, if he's on top of things, is really going to be devastating for that raw.
And then even without the Ratatoskr coming in, you've still got to deal with Shadowq's roots. Now, a lot of people don't really want to, you don't want to beads a root if you can help it, but sometimes that's going to keep you pinned in place long enough for ManRay to find that snipe he was after. One of the oracles going to go to Flashpoint, but with Team Money showing up, everybody going to go fall back for the time being. This oracle not being started up for the time being, because you can see Chapo is just hanging around the left-hand harpies too, but it will finally fall down and be an even trade for the time being.
looking for a potential gank possibility, maybe on those oracles. Nobody from Flashpoint really wanted to bother, though. They have the Gold Fury timer already. They don't have to worry about the oracles as much.
Well, Gold Fury's still down for a few more minutes, minute and 20 to be exact. Will be worth a little bit more this time around. And you can see AI have started to place a few more wards down on their left-hand side of the map, just keeping vision of where sops is. And any rotations to allow XenoTronics to get aggressive. And that's why Chapo's hanging around this area now. Chapo might be looking for a gank opportunity if he can find it. Sops getting very low. And this could be the signal for Thor to come down. Although Chapo went way too deep. I like the idea, though, to try and cut off the escape route. But the piggy comes into play for a second. Chapo still giving chase. The beads have already been used, and Sops is still alive thanks to a fantastic shell coming out from his support Shadowq. Now it's T-Money under pressure by Mexiety. The walls crash in, and the shell in response from Incon keeps T-Money up until ManRay through the wall will take his life.
That was a complete flop from AI. That's a kill you have to secure, and when you don't, 2 members dead because of it. Mexiety on the come around finds Chapo in the mid lane, knows he doesn't have the hammer available for himself as an escape, and now it's a T1 tower siege.
And it's going to be a free tier 1 for free. I don't think there's going to be any way to defend this one. The funny thing about that gank from Chapo, I actually feel like he expected Sops had noticed him and was going to dash backwards, or he was trying to cut off the escape route and then pin him in place. But by doing both those things, the prediction didn't work out, and then the escape route bought enough time for Flashpoint to help defend him.
It's just unfortunate all around, and like I said, that's kind of just they need a little bit cleaner gameplay. Right now, they're at a 3,000, or not necessarily 3,000. It's approaching the 3,000 gold deficit. It's really just the experience that I'm keeping an eye on. 2,500 experience in favor of Flashpoint.
Look at this, Taco. AI are trying to make a comeback with this Portal Demon, just trying to get something off the map for themselves too. But with ManRay and Shadowq here, AI are in a bit of a tricky spot. Mexiety's in the sky, and he's going to dunk down onto the back line. The Portal Demon goes to AI, and Mexiety's forced to beads and run away. And so AI end up coming out on top in that one. It's not a big gold swing in their favor, but it is something.
It's mostly to keep Flashpoint off of that objective. If Flashpoint are able to secure that objective, then you have to worry even more about Mexiety with those ganks, because he can choose, do I want to go to the soul lane or the mid lane right away, or even just invading the buffs. But AI, it's kind of just a state of mind.
Sops a little bit too far forward here, and Chapo's cut off the option. The wall is in perfect position and lasts just long enough for Xeno to pick up the kill. That was Sops feeling a little bit confident with how this game's going and looking for a cheeky steal. Instead, he ran into 3.
That's the kind of cleanup that needs to happen whenever Sops is out of position. He wasn't necessarily out of position when he was in his dual lane, but it's the fact that they were able to secure the kill. He can't escape the way that he did.
So now a bit of a chance for AI to get some kills on the board for themselves. Obviously, Team Money picked up 1, and now Xeno with another. So the good news is the carries are starting to get some of these kills, although they're still behind Flashpoint in more than just gold.
That's because Mexiety's got the 2-level lead onto Chapo. Chapo, unfortunately, been the sacrificial victim for both of AI's kills, and being a part of them is great, but assists are not worth as much as the kills themselves.
Transcendence now online for XenoTronics. A little bit late in the build, but it's after boots, and everyone's pretty much starting bombers in the Hunter role still as it stands. Bit of pressure in mid lane from AI. You saw that Incon was waiting around the corner, gets the ton on Mexiety. Double tap is good. Snipe is also good from T-Money. Or should I say, they're just the damage output, not the snipe. And that will be a nice free pickup of Mexiety in the mid lane.
And that's also a huge win for T-Money, because Mexiety's got quite a bounty on his head since he was level 13.
And that worked out well. Just knowing the beats were down is the big key there for them. Ends up coming up big for AI now. Whalrus rotating around just to give a bit of a cheeky warning to Flashpoint of, hey, don't go too far forward. You see the spectral armor picked up there. We've not seen one of those in a little while.
It's been a little bit of time, but it makes sense, because whenever you receive the physical damage, and it says it right there, they become feared. And it's notoriously an item that's great against gods such as Loki, but having it on the Terra just means that whenever Chapo is potentially looking for that setup initiation, or even the Sun Wukong, it's going to be really difficult for them to stay on top of things.
But it is procced off physical damage, so one ranged auto, it's only in a small AoE around you that it gets that fear off. So you've got to, it's mainly for Chapo, if anybody else, to really cause a problem for him if he's going to be ulting down to try and cause problems.
And it's going to be up to Xeno to keep an eye on proccing that off cooldown to try and make sure that Shadowq doesn't get as much utility out of the item.
But there's a lot of guys that can do that too. I mean, Thor Hammer can do it, Jingu Bang coming out from the Sun Wukong can proc it as well. Just going to set back Shadowq and being able to use that as effective as he may want.
Terra's up close and personal kind of god, though.
Well, talking about up close and personal, Mexiety is going to rotate around looking for XenoTronics. But yet again, the jungle is going a bit too deep. Mexiety's trying to get back to his own half of the map. His Incon turns up, the taunt is down. There's the ball, and it was AI that recommitted to this fight, and AI have made a terrible disaster of a mistake. They were out, they went back in, and it cost them a life.
XenoTronics had already expended his jump, so looking to chase the Ratatoskr when they're in a 2v3 situation was kind of just getting a little bit greedy there.
Yeah, and in the end, I mean, it gives AI a better pressure on the middle of the map, but Flashpoint come up with a kill, and now looking to invade the red buff, which is about to spawn. Perfect timing from Flashpoint here. Purple buff is about to spawn too, and they might be able to find that, but they're not going to be too interested, I guess. As it stands, new menu wave coming in. They'll spot the purple now. There you go.
I believe Chapo was also trying to counter-invade Flashpoint's speed buff, but it seems as though it was actually able to be secured by Flashpoint, which is fairly unfortunate because whenever your enemy jungler is able to successfully get off a gank and still his team secures that buff for him, even though he doesn't get to pick it up, it's his team that gets the farm. 1,500
gold in the lead as it stands. The experience, bit of a different telling story. You can see everyone just starting to chip away at their individual advancements over their opposition.
But the Gold Fury is about to respawn, and with 15 minutes and climbing in a game, this is probably the ideal time period to really start grouping for this Gold Fury objective fight.
Yeah, we'll see exactly what happens in this goal, because I think this could be a really telling one here. Flashpoint get this one, the game just continues in their favor even more. However, AI getting this one, we're almost back to an even game at that point, Taco.
The big thing for Flashpoint is that they have a composition that is fairly strong whenever they get even the slightest lead, and that's because they have the healer composition.
Sure.
Anytime a healer comp is even or ahead, you pretty much just thrive off of it because you sustain so heavily through these team fights, especially between a Raw and a Terra. AI, the problem for them in their last game and why the Raw didn't necessarily work out as well is because they were constantly playing on the back foot.
Well, here we go. AI going to start the gold. They know the oracles have already gone to Flashpoint. That's that blue glow. Just letting Flashpoint know what's going on. It looks like AI would rather like to fight here. Mexieties are hanging around the left-hand side as Sops is caught in an awkward spot. Nice work from Shadowq to peel him away as XenoTronics forced out in the back. And in goes Mexiety to focus Xeno some more. Mexiety going to Aegis and disengage. Sprint popped out by Shadowq too. And the call from both teams seems to be reset. Chapo has already used his ult, as has Mexiety, which means those globals, or the semi-globals that can make such an impact, are both now on cooldown.
That was a great disengage by Flashpoint because they had to sustain to just heal back up and look to re-engage in this Gold Fury. Now it's going to be XenonHawk going in onto Whalrus. Whalrus doesn't have an ultimate available.
Team Money pinted a little bit there and used the Aegis when he didn't really need to. The shell would have been enough to make him walk away, but worried about the burst damage coming through. Better safe than sorry. Gold Fury reset as AI start to siege up again against Flashpoint and make sure they don't get this for free. Both teams still dancing. Incon with a three-man taunt. The burst is good from both, but it's ManRay that comes up big and picks up the kill for Flashpoint. AI have lost two members now as Whalrus goes down. Chapo on the back, looking for the big-time play. Double tap not available, has to jump back out. He couldn't find the damage, and with that, AI limp away, hurt. As do Flashpoint, but hey, double sustain.
Double sustain is absolutely brutal for AI, and now they're more than healthy enough to take up this Gold Fury fight, especially since Incon and Whalrus are both still dead. Incon doesn't have the Defender of Olympus to come in.
However, and Chapo's in the sky, maybe looking to come down and try and steal this one away. Gold Fury goes down, and it goes the way of Flashpoint. ManRay secured it. Meanwhile, Shadowq doing work on the backline alongside Mexiety, who actually picks up one, and Xeno is one hit from death, and the Acons just won't do it.
This is getting grimmer and getting way more grim for AI right now. It's just absolutely
grimmer and grimier. You can go with that. That's fine.
It's rough.
It is, and now we've Hulk. All those archers. Archers win games at this stage, and they're just going to be poking down this tier 1. So not only the Gold Fury, not only a couple more kills, but a tier 1 tower in left after the one that in mid has already fallen. AI are slowly just slipping further and further behind.
It's just, you could kind of tell that AI seem a little sluggish.
And let's take into account, we said this before we went live with this game, These guys just came off the back of a 60-minute plus game that they lost as well. They were on the defense for a long time, and it's almost back to where they were, you know, 18 minutes, well, back in that last game, in the second game of the day, 18 minutes in, being behind and having to fight their way back into it.
But Flashpoint is sieging every single opportunity that they can. ManRay is swinging away on this Raw, dealing mad amounts of damage.
Yeah, this is Flashpoint trying to just grab this game by the bull of the, like a bull by the horns, and put the pressure on. Keep this pressure up. Group as 5, because AI aren't showing they can fight as a 5 against the 5 of Flashpoint. Over to the right-hand side, take the last tier 1 tower remaining on the map. Yeah, it gives Xeno a bit of free farm, but they can keep pressure in this lane now.
Xeno can't really do a whole lot as Ullr right now. He's one of the highest levels on his team, and granted, T-Money and Whalrus are also closely behind, but this T2C just getting absolutely destroyed. Incon trying to make a play happen, but ManRay just tosses out one beam of light, and that's all that it takes to deter the rest of AI.
It's 2 tanks that were trying to defend against a whole 5-man army. Chapo went up in the sky, couldn't get the angle he was looking for. He was looking to try and pick him up on the rotation through the jungle, but they went the opposite way and down the road. Mexiety to the backside, looking at Whalrus and Incon, both rooted in place, and now the Cloud will come to the rescue for Whalrus as a nice snipe from ManRay comes through. XenonHawk looking for the pickup of Incon and will be able to find it with those nasty little hands of his. Whalrus slammed by the walls as Chapo forced to beads and jump away. ManRay got a little bit too aggressive there, but the good news is AI answered back in this fight because XenoTronics did pick up 2 towers in the left-hand side.
And that's the amount of gold that AI was really hurting for. And closing that gold lead is just a little bit more is all that they really need to keep in mind. It doesn't help too much as far as experience is concerned, but no one's really that far behind right now other than Chapo, who's still got that 2-level disadvantage to Mexiety.
I think the big thing as well as I'm looking at is the amount of anti-heal so far. The second anti-heal item is now online. I think the pace of the anti-heal is okay here, Taco, because around 20 minutes is where the more of the team fights are going to start, you know, developing a lot more. Whalrus with the Pestilence, Chapo with that Brawler's Beat Stick, but I still think we need a little bit more here.
Raw heal and Terra heal early game are really nothing to pay much attention to. As the game progresses, of course, and considering it's progressing at a much faster rate than what we saw in the previous one, and that's simply because Flashpoint's been able to capitalize on every single objective opportunity.
10-3, 20 minutes and 42 seconds in the game. 5k gold lead for Flashpoint at least, and the experience is also in their favor. Basically, Flashpoint is just waiting for the next moment to really go for the fire giant, because Gold Fury is down for another minute and a half, and AI are just licking their wounds, really. Licking their wounds and trying to get as much farm as they can. Very similar to the last game.
And it's hard to find farm on a map where the enemy team is depriving you of it. Flashpoint has been on top of the buff timers for almost all of the jungle camp clear that can be shared globally. So it's really just coming down to, can AI buy themselves enough time yet again to bring that XP gap a little bit closer? That way they have a little bit more bite back in these team fights.
Just look at the ward coverage from Flashpoint too. They've got wards all around this speed buff and blue buff on AI's side of the map. Just keeping vision of where people are, and if they had the opportunity, look for some aggression, maybe find another pick. The dance around the fire giant is probably going to begin sooner than AI would like it to, but they've got a composition that can contest.
The primary issue that AI is going to run into, however, even if this does end up going a little bit longer, is that who really burst out any of the carries from Flashpoint? There's Team Money, and if Team Money's final judgment does not connect and immediately burst out somebody, Flashpoint will just out-sustain AI every single time, and that's kind of the downside of having a hunter like Ullr. And I mean, Ullr and Thor are both great picks. Or not necessarily like the greatest picks in the world, but Ullr isn't a hunter that can 100-0 somebody.
ManRay forced to beads very quickly there after the wall from Chapo coming out. Nice little poke damage from AI, and those beads being down puts ManRay a little bit deeper into his own backline for safety now. AI, with those beads being down, feeling they can start the Gold Fury up. Whalrus pushed out the midway first of all, now going to rotate around the corner and look to peel for his team and just set up a zone, but AI not confident enough to continue the Gold Fury, knowing that Flashpoint know what's going on.
Flashpoint can just keep them dancing around the edges as long as they want. This is pretty much pacing controlled entirely by them.
Tom from Incon goes into the Gold Fury pit, looking for a couple more beads if he can find it. Looks like he did actually pick up Sops' beads there in that little skirmish too. So now Sops' beads on cooldown, as are ManRay's. This isn't too bad for Team AI.
This is probably the best thing that you could want out of your support player. Incon knows that his team is at a massive disadvantage, so he's doing everything that he possibly can, even if it means putting himself at a very large risk.
The only bad news for AI is they don't have a sentry to clear out the wards around this Gold Fury pit, so Flashpoint still know this is going on. And with Whalrus just hanging around here, it's clear as day that Flashpoint just have to hang around, buy time, let AI do the hard work, and then look for the commit.
And Flashpoint are almost ready to try and counter-commit themselves. Xeno staying on that Gold Fury maybe a little bit too long. It is going to be reset again.
Yep.
But AI are losing a lot of opportunity to farm elsewhere on the map.
Well, Chapo's going to farm mid, but Mexiety in the sky as well on that Ratatoskr. Incon with a nice taunt, and in goes Xeno onto XenoTronics. Team on his ult comes through, but Chapo's already dead. Mexiety timed it well enough to pick up Chapo before he could even really make an impact in that fight. Look at the health bars of Flashpoint. Look at AI's situation. Their ults are all on cooldown, and there's only 4 members now to try and deal with this, and no real steal opportunity. Incon with a taunt, going to hit onto 2, but the Gold Fury goes down, and it's going to go the way of the Ratatoskr. Monkey's in trouble, and Monkey's not got an ult, so he's going to fall too.
You can tell that Flashpoint have a massive lead when Sops is willing to build Deathbringer as opposed to a standard bridge crit item.
Because normally, what kind of bridge crit item would you be looking for? Like, you know, Rage, I guess?
No, more
Star.
like a Poison Star or a Wind Demon have been the pretty popular ones. And now with the Gold Fury being secured and with that pick onto Whalrus, Chapo's going to be spawning, but he's not going to have time to get anywhere near this Fire Giant. Flashpoint just cleaning that one up as well.
And now the Pole Demon goes down too. Yeah, Fire Giant under all 5 members of Flashpoint now. AI are looking like they could be exiting the Pro League. Potentially. This just makes results elsewhere matter so much more for them. AI basically are going to, if they lose this game, they have to require other people losing games too. Like a lot of people losing games to try and get back into it. But they're not out of this just yet. The tier 2 towers, they still have 2 remaining. They are a little bit healthier than before. And obviously, we've seen Sops going for a more damage crit orientated build, means he's not got as much penetration to bring down these towers, although the Fire Giant will help with that.
Fire Giant will help a whole lot. I mean, there's only 2 T2s even remaining on the map for AI, so there's not going to be a whole lot of chances, or opportunities, I should say, for them to try and defend and counter-engage just because their draft is too far behind. And going back to the point I was making earlier, it's just that Ullr is a solid hunter for winning the laning phase, and you can make a lot of plays with him, but relying on him for like that sole all-in hard carry potential is just hard to make happen with that god.
This is a risky play from AI because Whalrus is on the wrong side of the map right now, and still AI trying to defend this tier 2 tower. Chapo in the jungle alongside one of his teammates. I believe that's Thoth alongside him. But XenonHawk has caught them in that narrow corridor, and he's going to force them back enough, which means Flashpoint recognize where everybody is and can take the tier 2 for free. Will they swing for the Phoenix here or swing onto mid lane?
Considering that Whalrus is now backed and AI will be able to 5-man group, Flashpoint could still potentially look to try and siege this, and they're not looking to slow down.
Gets torn onto the carries and instead eats some damage to snipe from ManRay onto XenoTronics, and that'll send him back to base. Incon's 1 hit from death, and he's already dead. Mexity's going to look to the backline at Chapo and try and help out ManRay, but Chapo just tried to buy time for his team. His Aegis is down, absorbs a lot of damage. The Phoenix still stands as Mexity's still tanking it up, as is XenonHawk. ManRay and Sops trying to bring it down, but Sops looking at Chapo more so than that Phoenix. Phoenix is still going to stand here, which means Flashpoint, they win the battle, but the war is not done.
And considering that they have Fire Giant, Raw Sustain, and the Terra heal, there's no way that they don't just stay on top of this. There's still 15 seconds until Incon respawns, and the Phoenix is half health.
Now the Phoenix focuses down from Sops for the time being. Minions coming in here to help them out. He's going to allow them to just remove those backdoor protections. That makes it oh so much easier. Left Phoenix finally goes down, and Flashpoint will head over towards mid.
Got to knock out that final T2 tower, pick up that extra gold, 1,500 for Flashpoint, which doesn't really make too much of an impact right now for them. I mean, they're already drastically further ahead than AI as far as the gold is concerned with a 10K lead, but backing and buying. I actually like the choice because you're not going to have enough gold typically off of one T2 to finish off an entire item, so probably safer to just pick up what you can on that initial back from sieging a T2 and a Phoenix, and then look to do the same thing in the mid lane.
Yep, that's the main aim of the game now. Take these Phoenixes down as best they can, and AI just They need one play, I guess. I mean, to be fair, they need more than one play, but they need to start with at least one good team fight where they can potentially catch ManRay or sops. I think ManRay is a real issue. Sops is the damage dealer, I'd say, but ManRay is the one that's causing them problems. They're focusing him a lot, but he's just surviving the whole time.
ManRay's actually been incredibly on point with his raw snipes. Like, he's been landing a lot of his abilities, and that's really what's turning the tides here for Flashpoint. It's just all that damage from the raw on top of his healing, and the AI don't really have a response to it, because even when Chapo looked to try and commit onto ManRay, he immediately just pops his Aegis, and then Mexiety, instead of re-engaging into a team fight further on the frontline side of things, he just jumps straight to his backline.
Fire Giant has worn off of Flashpoint. New one about to spawn in 53 seconds time. 20 seconds on the goal view, and you can see Flashpoint also hanging around that area too, as AI just taking the scraps from their own jungle that Flashpoint are allowing them to take.
Fire Giant has finally worn off of Flashpoint, though, so it's not going to take them much longer, however, to go back to it whenever it respawns. It'll be up pretty shortly. It's just a waiting game right now for Flashpoint.
And that's all AI are doing too, just trying to wait for Flashpoint to push again and try and fight them at their own. Phoenix will be the call. We've seen some pretty good Phoenix defenses, though, coming out from teams now, especially because of the health that's been added to the Phoenix, and the amount they will respawn with is allowing them to defend a little bit easier. But I don't think Flashpoint are going to let up that easy.
I think team compositions also played a large part in those Phoenix defenses. And when you look at these two drafts, Flashpoint versus AI, other than team money, and Incon's been doing a great job still with this Athena, launching off of his taunt at every avenue possible, but there's just no follow-up damage.
Look how quick that went down there. Sops just swinging away and pretty much on his own to bring that down. Obviously, with 2 crit items in his build, it's going to make it a little bit easier. Might as well get the Portal Demon too, and then barrel down potentially the right-hand side. But first of all, quick shopping trip, boys. Let's just spend that gold in hand.
Doesn't hurt them at all to back in the slightest, and they'll have more than enough time to try and siege down the remaining 2 Phoenixes. And even if that Phoenix in the left-hand side ends up respawning for AI, with the lanes being pushed up for Flashpoint, they could very easily just continue swinging across.
Well, AI will now realize Flashpoint are grouped on the right-hand side. Mexiety's in the jungle still, just hanging around, looking for an opportunity. Keep an eye on him and Thor. They both play very similarly, those 2 gods, so expect to see them both look for the same sort of ultimate at the same time. So far, Mexiety's got the better of Chapo in this game in terms of when to ult and where to land, but that's also the benefit of being Ratatoskr. You get a little bit more time in the air.
A little bit more time in the air and a little bit more follow-up as well for Mexiety. His team has been right behind him at every single opportunity, but Chapo's kind of had to go more out on a limb.
XenonHawk, with all the sustain he's getting from those Raw and the Terra too, is just going to tank this one up. Meanwhile, Sops, Shadowq and ManRay focusing down Incon and pushing him back. Mexity's in this guy, looking for an opportunity. Will it be Whalrus? Not really the best choice. He was looking to Chapo, who was coming down, but Chapo will get away from the danger. Phoenix down at half health. 3 members of Flashpoint still on the front side, but you can see how low Sops is. He needs to go and resustain using those Devourer's gauntlets. Flashpoint's still going to fight, though, waiting for Sops to come back in, and now back to a healthier standpoint.
But it's going to be Whalrus now made the focal point for Flashpoint. ManRay launches off the snipe. Whalrus was barely able to use the 72 transformation to get out of there, but the same can't be said for Team Money as he's trying to run away from XenonHawk.
All this fight going on, keeping on the left-hand lane. The Phoenix did respawn, but they are fire minions barreling down that left-hand lane. So the longer this team fight takes, the longer that AI are going to lose that left-hand Phoenix relatively soon, I should say. Incon is now going to fall down to Shadowq. The Phoenix on the right will follow. Left one still being dropped by the minions. You can see how long it's going to survive for. But with the right one going down, Flashpoint can swing that way or just towards mid.
They're just going to head straight for the mid Phoenix. They know that they have fire waves incoming anyway for themselves. So pick up the mid Phoenix, and this third one won't take much longer.
It won't, but maybe there's a chance for AI to try and stop this. Just about. I don't know. XenonHawk is still too tanky. The sustain is just too much for AI to deal with. Flashpoint are going to take all 3 Phoenixes as Chapo is still looking for Sops but can't quite find it. He does manage to get away for the time being, but now it's the Titan and AI. No towers remaining.
AI had to do everything in their power to try and prevent this one from going down. Whalrus forced up into his ultimate, being up in the cloud so early just leaves a lot of play room for Flashpoint, just buys him so much time to regroup and re-heal, and that's exactly what they're doing. Mexiety really the lowest one on the team.
Sneaky
They're
bait.
popping the Terra ult.
They're going for the kills. I thought they were going to go for the Titan rush. Instead, they're trying to chase down XenoTronics, and will do just that. Right-hand side, Chapo's now in trouble too. He has to rotate back towards his base. Aegis is on cooldown, and the snipe will connect from ManRay, and now it's just a fiesta of kills. Flashpoint celebrating their win over AI, giving them a chance to still get to the Pro League, and almost removing AI at the same time.
I think that the last game definitely had an impact mentally for AI. They did not look anywhere near the same as what they looked in the last 30 minutes of their previous game, and all around though still incredibly well played by Flashpoint. Just that punishment early on to AI for the moments where they looked for the engagements and just couldn't find them. Flashpoint cleaned them up every time.
Yeah, I think Mexiety in the jungle had a pretty good game like Ratatoskr. I mean, we saw, Chapo pick the Thor into it, but Mexiety showed Ratatoskr can still be played.
Ratatoskr still has his viability. That's the same could be said for a lot of gods. People don't necessarily realize that with the right team composition, and especially in a competitive environment where you have comms and a little bit of synergy with your teammates, you can make a lot of things happen. And that was probably one of the bigger plays for me in the early game stage, was that 3-man knockup, setting up ManRay beautifully.
It's also showing the synergy between the two. The jungle and the mid, so important in these games. Although Team and Chapo did get themselves on the board a bit earlier on in this game too, but Mexiety just better performance overall. He just held his ult. Look how he's just waiting for the right opportunity, and he's mainly looking at Chapo every time. He wants to make sure that Chapo can't really make an impact.
Wherever Chapo went, Mexiety made sure to follow soon after, and that map awareness by such a fresh player to this kind of environment. Mexiety's been around for a while. He's always been a fairly strong mechanical player in the rank scene, but showing off a little bit of his own prowess in this kind of setting is really important.
We saw some Ratatoskr. We should see some raw snipes too coming through here, because ManRay had a pretty good game. You mentioned it yourself. He was pretty much on point, and that nice little pickup over T-Money on the start of this game was where it all really began.
His snipes were absolutely beautiful on this raw. He was landing in almost every single one. The only time I ever saw him miss was whenever somebody used an active to get away from him.
Which is the best thing you can do as Raw. If you can guarantee those snipes pretty much all the time, it does allow your team to just know these relics are on cooldown, and predictions make it a lot easier to pick up the kills. So 16-17 to 3 was pretty much the end score there. AI, do you reckon they're out, or do you reckon they still got a chance?
It's going to be incredibly difficult for AI to try and find their way back in. Like you mentioned, it's going to be their fate is in somebody else's hands, and whenever you're in that kind of scenario, it doesn't usually end up super well.
Let's go to the standings just so you guys at home can see how it's looking right now. Mighty Storm and Gatekeepers have only played one game each, but they both found wins. They're about to play up against each other next. Flashpoint, after 2 matches, have only found one win. They're at the top for the moment, but one of these two Challenger Cup teams will surpass them after this next game.
And this is a really important match for a Mighty Storm and SPL Gatekeepers, because whoever wins this one is, I believe, practically guaranteed to go through.
Yep, because they would have beaten, potentially in a great spot for them to go through. We'll find out, though, after this short break. We'll be back with Game 4.
I'm Ron Jobert. I'm John Osment, John Robert Osment. And I don't know if people know this, but when it comes to Ron Jobert, the name, it was really hard to come up with, because you take John Robert, then it's like a spoonerism, you have to flip the R and the J. It's Ron Jobert.
That's fantastic.
That took me $7,000 to get in real life, because of royalties. I'm not even sure I'm allowed to say it on camera. I started with Smite because I played beta. The first god that I remember being in Smite, being new, was Ram. My friend and I played together, and all we would play was Match of the Day. And we started playing because we saw these, I think it was YouTube videos, like Achievement Hunter or Rooster Teeth in general. They love playing Smite and doing the videos and that kind of thing. And I started playing it, and I love playing Loki, and just being one of those guys is Loki in Arena is actually sick. This is nuts.